Hello everybody, this is The Pocket Passer. I'm your host, Randy White, and I hope all of you are having a fantastic day. I know I am. It's Tuesday, following the conclusion of Week 14 in the NFL, and man, there was some chaos, especially last night, with the Packers blowing it against a huge underdog Giants, and the Dolphins doing the same against an inferior Titans team, blowing a 14-point lead with under 3 minutes to go for the first time since 2016 that a team has done that. So very impressive. Let's clap it up for those teams for blowing key opportunities in their own rights. Green Bay had a chance to separate themselves at the 7th seed and go after the 6th seed competitively. They still can, but it's going to be more of an uphill battle to climb up to the 6th seed. Obviously, they're out of the 5th seed because that's going to belong to either Philly or the Cowboys, and they're going to run away with it. So that's no contest. But they had a chance to climb up a little higher. It's going to be harder to do so now. And for Miami, they had the 1 seed in their control with a victory. It's not going to matter a whole lot because they play the Ravens in Week 17. The winner of that game is likely going to decide who gets the 1 seed. But a very disappointing loss for a Miami Dolphins team that certainly at least probably felt like they were in control of things heading into that, but they blew it big time. So now after that, let's get into the news. Starting off first, Justin Herbert is undergoing surgery on his throwing hand finger that he injured. He is out for the year. His season is done. The Chargers season is done. And Brandon Staley's career as a Chargers coach has coming to an imminent end. He will be fired in the offseason. That's damn near a guarantee. And they need a new fresh start in LA. Hopefully a new head coach will give it to him. This Herbert injury is just a big exclamation point on what's been a disastrous season for the Chargers. Dolphins offensive lineman Connor Williams tore his ACL last night in Miami's disastrous loss to the Titans. He's going to miss the rest of the year. That's a huge loss for a Dolphins team that was really, really importantly needing offensive linemen. They lose an important guy on their front 5 protection. And Tua, who was beat up last night and sacked in crucial moments, pressured in crucial moments, not a good sign heading into the playoffs where they will have to play good pass rushes, likely now, thanks to their loss, on the road. Josh Dobbs has been benched for Nick Mullins. This was a move that was pretty clear that was going to happen. He was benched in the middle of the game against the Raiders as the Vikings were able to muster a grand 3 points in their 3-0 victory, which it's been a long time since 3-0 has happened. Ties for the lowest score ever. No team has won 2-0. Love to see that happen. That would be pure defense. But as it is, a 3-0 victory for Minnesota sends Josh Dobbs to the bench. The Pasternaut era in Minnesota is over. We knew this was going to happen if you paid attention because although he played well in Arizona for a few weeks, his play quickly declined those last 2 weeks of the season. He was terrible with Arizona the last 2 games before he was traded to Minnesota. Then in Minnesota, he goes on a hot streak. He comes from Pasternaut to the internet, and it's all-knowing cruelty, changing that Pasternaut, dropping the P, and now he is known, unfortunately, as the Astronaut. I don't make the rules, but that's the way it is. And when I say astronaut, I'm emphasizing the ASS. And more Dolphins news. The Dolphins signed edge rusher Melvin Ingram to maybe help with that pass rush a little bit. Certainly was needed last night. They weren't able to get to Will Levis, who looked fantastic, by the way, enough to seal a victory, and they blew, like I said, a 14-point lead with under 3 minutes to go. First time that has happened since 2016. A unbelievable collapse by Miami. They got to be walking away from that game shaking their heads, knowing they had that. All right, let's get into the rest of the episode. And to start us off, Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, balled out last night. He was fantastic. Unfortunately, against my Packers. Or I don't know about fantastic, but he played well enough to get the win, and he led a clutch game-winning drive in the final minute and a half of the game to lead a field goal. And by the way, I have a serious bone to pick with Matt LaFleur. His play calling has been phenomenal in their 3-game win streak. But last night, he couldn't get away from Jayden Reed stretches and different motions into just Jayden Reed gadget plays. And after a while, hey, it worked the first time. It was a touchdown to Jayden Reed to open the game. But after that point, it was like, okay, let's just keep feeding Jayden Reed on these sweeps, and the Giants will stop it again and again and again and again. And then, hey, I have an idea. Let's throw the ball effectively down the field and then go for another jet sweep on the 2-point conversion, which ultimately cost them the game. I didn't understand Matt LaFleur's game plan. The way he was able to use motion for smoke and mirrors and misdirection against the Chiefs was phenomenal. And instead, he used that motion and smoke and mirrors type play calling against the Giants to be incredibly predictable play after play. It blew my mind how he could go from being in his bag play calling so impressively against the Chiefs to being so bad at it the following week against the Giants. It didn't make any sense to me. Jordan Love was wildly inaccurate and just looked a mess. I don't know what happened there. Jordan Love went from being polished and looking like he was on his way to being the next big thing for Green Bay the last 3 weeks, playing against teams that I thought were good. And by the way, we're starting to learn those teams might not have been good. They might be frauds. Kansas City and Detroit both crumbling at the end of the season. The Lions defense is decimated and playing some of the worst football in the league the last month. Kansas City's defense, still good. I was impressed with Green Bay's offense against Kansas City, for sure. But Kansas City's offense is an unmitigated disaster, especially the receivers, specifically the receivers. They can't get anything right. And by the way, the childish reaction by the Chiefs on Sunday following that loss was embarrassing. Patrick Mahomes knows it was. He apologized, said it was a bad example for kids watching. He's absolutely right. The way he acted towards Josh Allen was very childish and disappointing. Should the media be killing him over it? No, because it's a competitive game. You get your emotions. He's been frustrated all year because the receivers are selling. He doesn't want to scream at his receivers on the sideline in front of national TV. So, hey, I'm going to go ahead and scream at the refs. I'm going to blame the refs. I'm going to say the refs should have done things differently. Fine. It's not the end of the world. Mahomes is still a good leader, a great quarterback, and a very likable personality. So let's not jump ship on the guy over one mistake. Same thing with Andy Reid, who's also critical of the refs and is also never critical of the refs. But for God's sakes, people that are saying that somehow this isn't a Kadarius Toney problem, did you watch the play, the pictures? And there's a video surfacing of Kadarius Toney where he points at the ref briefly. Oh, he did check with the ref. That's not checking with the ref. All right, if I walk up to the line, I go like this. Don't look at his reaction and then inch forward. That's not looking at the ref. It's just not. That's not what he did. He did not check with the ref and get confirmation. He looked at the ref, pointed at him, didn't wait for the ref's response, immediately looked away, and then moved more forward after he was already past the line of scrimmage. So it's not a check. That's not a competent one, at least. He was past the line of scrimmage by a good amount. And if you want to talk to me about how it didn't affect the play, that's too bad. It's an NFL rule. I coached junior high football, and I had refs called offsides on our receiver like twice in a big game. All right? So I don't want to hear about how this isn't fair. It's happening at the junior high level, all right? These receivers are taught at the junior high level where I coach. Check with the ref. Make sure you're on the line. He's going to give you a signal, and when he does, you're good. It's basic football 101. So to say that Kadarius Toney, this and that, no. It's 100% his fault. Let's not steer away from the course. He needs to correct things. He's been a problem all year long. That entire receiving core has been a problem all year long, with the exception of Rashee Rice. He's been fantastic as a rookie, but it's been a disorganized and undisciplined receiving core that has been wildly disappointing. They got a lot to clean up. It's not on the refs. For once, it's not on the refs. So let's move past that, please and thank you. Now, another team that I've lost faith in, now this one's easier because they don't have a future Hall of Fame quarterback. They have a quarterback that's not very good as a starter. He's injured. And now their backup, who can't throw the football to save his life, is in. And their receiving core is undisciplined. And their offensive play calling is inconsistent. It's better without the public enemy number one, Matt Canada. But still, the Steelers are toast, man. Their defense has crumbled now in back-to-back games against 2-win teams. They've handed 2 teams with 2 wins their third win in back-to-back weeks. They have slipped from 7-4, looking like they are going to go maybe 10-7 at worst. Head into the playoffs pretty easily. No. All of a sudden, now they're 7-6. They can't beat the worst teams, the gimmies. How are you going to expect me to believe, or the Steelers fans, or anybody for that matter, that they can beat actual competent teams when you can't outscore Arizona? Fine, Kyler Murray's back. He's capable of being dynamic. Whatever. We can move past an Arizona loss. They've been capable of upsetting people. The Patriots? You let Bailey Zappi, a Bailey Zappi-led offense, put up 21 points on you. That's pathetic. It's embarrassing. And the Steelers are toast. It's over. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're going to lose again. If they're lucky, they're going to go 9-8, and Tomlin's going to get to keep his no-losing season record alive. And I think Tomlin's a good coach, but the idea that he's one of the great coaches in the game, they haven't been able to get over the hump, even when they had Ben and Bell and Brown. Let's give up 50 points in a playoff game to Blake Bortles. This is a culture that has been built upon winning and success, but they just cannot get over the hump whatsoever. Hell, Joe Flacco and the Ravens have been there and won more recently than Ben's Steelers did in that time frame. And now, by the way, I think Joe Flacco and the Browns have a better chance at winning the Super Bowl than the Steelers do this year. And hell, the way that Browns defense is playing and the way Joe Flacco is playing with that offense and the play calling and how everything's gelling together, I think this Joe Flacco-led Browns is a genuine contender because this AFC conference that's supposed to be great is wildly disappointing. The 3 best teams, or at least the 2 by far best teams in the NFL, are the 49ers, followed by the Cowboys. Guys, the 49ers aren't going to lose another football game the remainder of the season. I will guarantee that to you. And when I say remainder of the season, I mean regular season and postseason. The 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl, and they're not going to lose another football game as long as their guys stay healthy. That's a promise. I'm so unbelievably confident in that take. They're loaded. They execute. They're more physical than everybody at every level. It's just not a contest. And now finally, let's get to my MVP candidates. So here are my MVP candidates now after Dak Prescott led a dominant victory over a Philadelphia Eagles team that looks banged up, tired, and just flat out exhausted. If they don't get a first round bye by the grace of God, meaning Frisco will have to lose a game, which isn't going to happen. If they don't get that bye, they might be a first round exit. Never mind, they're going to play an NFC South team. So they won't be a first round exit, but they're not making it past the divisional round. They need rest badly. And if they don't get it, they will not make it to the Super Bowl. They need it badly. They look banged up and exhausted. So here's my MVP list. Number 1, I got Dak Prescott following his amazing game against Philadelphia. He's been amazing ever since the 49ers game. His footwork's been cleaned up. His timing's been cleaned up. His accuracy and his processing all been cleaned up. Everything looks so much cleaner and concise. He's been phenomenal making plays off schedule. He's been very accurate. Again, footwork great, timing great. They've cleaned up the spacing in their offense. Mike McCarthy's done a good job of being like, okay, the spacing was terrible in that 49ers game. The footwork was terrible in the 49ers game. They cleaned up everything. Wildly impressive what they've been able to do to overhaul that offense and make it much more efficient. Dak Prescott's been terrific. He deserves to be the front runner for MVP. Number 2 is Brock Purdy. I've heard enough about game manager. This man is not a game manager. He can make all the throws. He's great off schedule. He's great on time. He's excellent at getting out of pressure and getting out of the pocket. He makes risky throws accurately. all this, he's got the Avengers around him. Guys, there's no such thing as the Avengers in the NFL. It's the National Football League. These guys are all professionals. They're all good. No one is so much better than the others that you can get away with not having a quarterback. The Chiefs and Jimmy Garoppolo proved that when they had that 49ers team, which was also phenomenal. Brandon Ayuk's an excellent route runner. They've got guys all over the place making plays. So yes, it's going to take away from Brock Purdy getting the MVP. He's currently the favorite. I think it should be Dak. I think it's a very close race between the two of them. We'll see how the season ends. Dak gets to play another good team in the Lions. And by the way, this good team, that's the agenda, but Lions defense has fallen apart. Dak's going to throw for a ton of yards and a good amount of touchdowns against this Lions team, and I think it's going to put him over the hump in the MVP race. Brock Purdy's been great, though. I think people are just so distracted by the fact that they've got Debo, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Trent Williams. The rest of their offensive line's a little overrated. They've got amazing skill players, but Brock Purdy is the one behind center executing. They couldn't do it with Nick Mullins. They couldn't do it with Jimmy Garoppolo for an extended period of time. They couldn't do it with CJ Beathard. They couldn't do it with all these other guys that have been there. Trey Lance. Brock Purdy is the one that had them in the NFC Championship, that has them with the best, tied for the best record in the NFL, with the 1 seed in the NFC. Let's pump the brakes on this whole Brock Purdy's a system guy, all right? He might have limitations with his arm, but he's got a good enough arm. He's accurate enough. He extends plays well enough. He's a good football player. He's a good quarterback. Number 3, Tyreek Hill. His injury last night proved the Dolphins need him badly, and they do. They need to get things rolling. They're not going to be able to do it without Tyreek Hill. He deserves to be in the MVP conversation because of how amazing he's been. Christian McCaffrey at 4. He's a huge piece of that offense. You could argue Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Debo in there in that MVP conversation. I went with McCaffrey. That's the reason why I don't think a 49ers player can win it, because there's so many of them that are so great. It's going to take away. Number 5, I guess Lamar Jackson. I honestly think it's a pretty big drop-off between Dak and Purdy and Tyreek, and then it kind of falls off a cliff after that. But Lamar has been very good. He's been very efficient. I believe Josh Allen's a top 3 MVP candidate if he gets the Bills in the playoffs. They're out of the playoff picture right now, so he's not an MVP candidate. That's pretty much how I view it. If you have to win, you have to make the playoffs to win MVP. I think Josh Allen, extremely underrated. He deserves to be in the conversation if they can make the playoffs. They're not there right now, so he's not there right now. Simple as that. That's going to do it for this show. I appreciate each and every one of you for watching. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to hit subscribe, like it, comment, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when I post more videos. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok for more shorter video content. And as always, I will see all of you in the next video.